Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. And you can see, as we begin today's show, I'm at the house. I didn't want to contaminate everybody. I knew it was inevitable that I would get sick. The entire family is. This is where you test the bounds of love, right? Everybody was sick but me. I was the picture of health, and I told them all to keep their sickly selves away from me. But we live in the same house, and I take my kids to school. What are you going to do? So last night I went to bed at like 7 p.m. and told them all I hated them. And that's how we begin today's show. When I woke up this morning, I said, I still hate you. Have a good day. So that's where we're at. And I didn't want to go in studio today for fear that I make everybody else sick as well. So today's show is recorded. It's a little bit earlier than we would normally start, and it's from the house. And this is about the energy level you're going to get right here. This is what you're getting today. This is it. This is top end Jeff right here. I got nothing else but this right here, which brings me to the point of game week here. And I want to thank Duke for not sucking. I thought about it yesterday, in and out of sleep, that Duke has provided something worthy for the first time in the history of this rivalry. Well, this game. It's not a rivalry. I always forget. It is for them in Miami, but it is not for Florida State, as Florida State has never lost to Duke, ever. Not once, ever in the history of the football matchup. And let's not start this Saturday night, but also in the history of this matchup, Duke has never mattered in any way, shape, or form. They've been a punching bag, quite the antithesis of what they are on the basketball court, obviously. But whereas on the basketball court, we've mattered and taken down Duke in some big moments, they've never mattered on the gridiron against us. And so, bravo, Duke, bravo, Elko. Way to run away from Jimbo and know that that was a toxic set of circumstances that you needed to flee from. Way to go last year, winning 9 games. Way to go this year. Only one loss, and that's to Notre Dame in the last seconds of the contest, because what we get now, thanks in large part to Duke, is a primetime matchup with real energy surrounding this game. People are excited. Like, that game is being talked about amongst the 3 or 4 best in the country this weekend. And I know when we start the year, every year, we look ahead at games and we look at the schedule and we talk about what we think might happen, what ought to happen, where we'll be at a certain point, and where our opponents will be at a certain point. And I just don't think, even though we gave Duke their proper due in the offseason, noting that they were not a pushover team this year, I don't think we thought they would be this kind of an opponent with just the one loss and really some primetime buzz added to the game. So I give them credit for that. Of course, we've done our part, undefeated. Florida State has to stay that way. Quite frankly, I think they should for the remainder of the regular season, although I don't think it won't be without trial and tribulation, as I do believe Duke will give you a test this weekend. Tom doesn't agree with me. He thinks Duke's going to get blown out. But I like Florida State to have to struggle a little bit here against a defense that I think is very, very sound. So that's how we begin today.
Well, I think, yeah, I think when you look at the final score, it's going to be lopsided. But I think it's one of those situations where Duke's offense is so blah, especially without their starting quarterback, that if you just lean on them and lean on them and lean on them, they're going to give in at some point. And I'm not talking about effort. I'm just talking about time of possession and the physicality of bringing what Florida State brings to the table over and over again. I had a chance ahead of a feature that I'll write for tomorrow on warchant.com to look more in depth at the Notre Dame Duke game. And that was an interesting one because Notre Dame scores early. It's a sloppy game. Like Notre Dame in the scope of all of those big matchups they had, Ohio State and Duke, and then the Louisville where they get smoked, and then USC. This was a slop fest for Notre Dame. The entirety of the first half, I think every single one of their possessions was marked by some sort of penalty, and it puts them behind the chains. But here's where Duke gets credit. If you do get behind the chains, Duke does a very good job of getting off the field.
Yes, they do.
But what it's going to force us to do, and that Notre Dame didn't do a really good job of consistently in that, eking out of a win over the Blue Devils, was the hidden things, the little things. I know that's a big part of the acronym CLIMB, right, is the little things. But falling forward for a hidden yard or two on a run, diagnosing and communicating with whatever front that Duke is going to bring to the table. It might be 4-man, but they love to do a lot of twists and stunts the way that our defensive line likes to do twists and stunts. So making sure your communication with the front five is okay and they play as one. That you get the ball out on time when somebody's open and you take that 4 or 5 yards to get into a 2nd and 5. Like all those little things are going to add up for FSU's offense in this game. But the one thing, you go to Clemson and the one thing that you would point out is red zone inefficiency from Clemson. It was historic how bad that they were. They ran between the 20s like nuts. The one thing I look at with the Notre Dame game against the Blue Devils, Notre Dame doesn't have any receivers. None. They've got a tight end who is awesome and nothing else. And Duke is in one-on-one on the perimeter. In a matchup with Florida State, Jordan Travis will take those one-on-ones. We know that all too well. But Duke has not seen a set of wide receivers as skilled as they're about to see on Saturday night. And I want to see how that changes the dynamic of how their defense, which is very good, matches up against Florida State.
Yeah, Notre Dame wants to run the ball. They want to bludgeon you. They want to throw off a play action. They want to hit their tight end. They want, obviously, the opportunity to get you in second and medium and then kind of hit you from there. And Duke did a real good job of understanding that. I think one of the things that the reason I keep bringing up the challenge, look, I like Florida State to win the game. I like Florida State to cover the game. I think if we're talking about wearing a team down, that's a little bit more of an apt descriptor as opposed to just saying, like last week, you guys know, I was very dismissive of Syracuse. I don't think Syracuse is any good at all. I don't think there's a thing about that team that I respect. I don't even think their defense is good. I'm tired of people talking about it. Their defense is not good. And they're going to continue to give up a ton of points. So they're just not good. And I don't think that about Duke at all. I think Duke is fundamentally sound, and we're not always real good on first down. So that is a recipe for disaster. If you're going to suck on first down, you're going to be in 2nd and 10 and 2nd and 8. We don't run the ball consistently well against really anybody. So especially not in obvious run situations or in standard run situations. So I just think you could be behind the chains a lot, and that is disconcerting. I also don't think Duke's offense is going to move the ball, so I'm not going to worry about it as much. I think Duke will be physical, very physical. You'll have to match that. I see no reason why Florida State won't match that energy. Florida State, 7:30 game, primetime game. This crowd will be going nuts. They'll be excited. So the energy is not going to be a problem. Duke has their attention. Like I said, it'll be physical. So that gets your attention early against anybody that shows up on film as physical. I just think that in terms of execution, we've watched Florida State have these moments this year that frustrate us to no end. I think you're going to see plenty of those moments in this game.
Yeah, I don't know that you'll have as many pre-snap penalties as Notre Dame brought to the table, and that game also featured a few missed field goals in the first half. It was one of those where Notre Dame is controlling it, but they're not running away on the scoreboard, and so what happens? Duke gets to creep in, and we saw that against Boston College for Florida State. Like, you get it; those things can happen, especially when you're on the road in a primetime environment. You let the home team, hang around. And it's the biggest game in their program's history, or since Steve Spurrier, at least, right? Yeah. 30 years. So you could see how there's a recipe for something along those lines. It's just that we are going to play them fundamentally differently than anything that they've seen so far. If you combine, for example, the Clemson game plan, which is a lot of perimeter screens. Remember, we did the scout reverse. What does Clemson's offense bring to the table? Well, they did a bunch of bubbles and outside looks, and that spreads the defense out wide, and they were able to run up the gut or run off tackle or do whatever they wanted to do with a 2-back set. What I'm fascinated to see in a matchup this weekend, one group versus another, that secondary is physical for Duke in terms of getting off of blocks to make plays in the perimeter. But they're not. I mean, this is the best blocking wide receiver group that they're going to see all year long.
Correct.
So at times, the fight's going to take place on the perimeter. This is a wide receiver kind of game to open up a little bit more on the ground. Jordan needs to run more. We all know that. But then the style of runs, too. This defense is way too quick if you want to run counters. Like, Notre Dame runs that stuff really good, gap scheme stuff. And Duke was very alert at stopping that. So Notre Dame stopped doing it for the most part. So we've been trending in that direction where our bread and butter from last year is not exactly what we're running a bunch of this year. This is it's a very different style of matchup than Duke has seen this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the offense does.
It's a strange game. I think if we try to bully Duke, we will not be able to. And that's why, I'm talking about running the ball. and running the ball on first down. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. I think what you have to do is bully them in another way, and you just alluded to it, and it's a smart way to do it. Bully them with your wide receivers. They don't match up well in terms of size and athleticism. Nobody does against Florida State at wide receiver. Nobody. We have too many big receivers that are willing to put their hands on you. So this is the great distinct advantage Florida State has against every single team they play. That included LSU. That included, to some degree, Clemson. I think it includes anybody they'll play in the future. I've got grown-ass men who are willing to put their hands on you on the outside. I've got a unique situation with my offensive line. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just, So why not allow my receivers to do the blocking and get the ball out quick and kind of bully them that way, and then set up the run using that passing game? That's the way I think we should play it. I just wonder if we're pig-headed enough or too pig-headed to do that. I think sometimes we want to do certain things that we're not all that capable of doing against certain teams, and then only after they prove that we're not capable do we go back to this thing that we know we have an advantage in. I'd start the game that way.
Yeah, agreed. See, the thing is, pig-headed or stubborn or not, whatever you want to term it, I don't know that post-bye we've been put in a position where you've got to scheme things to be open. You could just kind of run your offense and do what you do and figure out what you are coming off the bye. But this is a game where I think it mirrors more of 2022, which is you set things up for a couple of weeks. You've put things on film in order to set up shot plays. And this is, in short, Mike Norvell has already shown you that he will disrespect an opponent based upon the perceived threat. And I don't think this is one of those that's going to be disrespected. I think this is one that's going to be schemed for, because you've got Wake and Pitt following this game. So this is one that you circle and say, all right, if you've been setting something up for weeks or this whole season to play off of it, you break it out this week again.
Yeah, this is a good point by you, Tom. I think that's absolutely true. It's a coach's game. I really want to see how Mike does here. I've often lauded Mike and this staff for being prepared in these bigger games and these bigger moments to have a little something for an opposing team that maybe they haven't seen before, or something that's unique in that given week. Florida State has a core set of things they want to do, but we, again, talked about week to week last year how impressive it was that they could be this kind of team one Saturday and another type of team the next Saturday. This is one of those Saturdays. This is one of those days where let's see what you got, Mike. And I'm always, and I say that not cynically, I say that as in I'm looking forward to it, because I agree with you when you watch it's not the tape because we don't have the coach's tape, but if you go back and watch the games, and you have and I have, and we watched them in real time, we watched them a second time, they are setting stuff up. There's no doubt that he's setting things up. And I think it's because he realizes the second half of this season is more difficult, oddly, than maybe we expected. Duke is going to be a more difficult game than we expected. I have a feeling if Miami hasn't quit yet, they have the defensive personnel to make that difficult. Florida's probably not going to quit when we face them down in Gainesville, and then whoever you play in the ACC championship game. So you've got 4 games from a personnel standpoint, a physical standpoint, where you've got to outcoach a team and utilize your skill set and the skill athletes that you have, which are better than most teams in the country, to varying degrees in each of these games. You can't just line up and do whatever you want. You can line up and do anything you wanted against Southern Miss. I would argue to a certain degree you could do that against several teams we faced this year. Obviously couldn't do that against Clemson. And you couldn't necessarily do that against LSU in game 1, although in the second half it sure looked like we did anything we wanted. It's fascinating. I think they have 4 tough games coming up after we've played these 6. I think we all thought coming out of the first 4, could you be 1-1 in your 2 big ones? Well, turned out you were 2-0 in your 2 big ones, and you've reached 6-0. I didn't think we thought we'd have after 6 games, another 4 difficult games, but I think we will.
It's fair, yeah. I nitpick with Florida. Miami's about motivation. Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if they care to be there, they have the personnel to fight us.
Correct. And you know what? Hopefully you can test them with a good first quarter and see if they still want to be there.
Correct. And if they get blown out this weekend by Clemson, they may not want to be there. So you may not have to worry about it. Yeah.
Florida, I like the matchup. We stop what they want to do best, which is run the football traditionally. So if we can do that and put Mertz in situations, and that'll get fun. But yeah, again, this is a week where, Mike Norvell has said it's been a message of his all season long. You hear it on all the cinematic recaps. It's about us. It's not about them.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's about us. But there are times, that Miami that played a Pokey Wilson last year, that's set up for a long time. They're doing a lot of different things formationally to have Pokey Wilson wide the hell open in that situation for the first score against Miami to set the tone for the game. That wasn't a coverage bust based upon something that we do every week as our bread and butter, So I think that's what this week is about a little bit. The one thing, a couple of things I'd say about our offense matching up against their defense. We've seen a better defense this year already. We saw it on the road at Clemson. That is a better defense head to toe than what Duke brings to the table. This team cannot cover the tight end. They were unable to do it when the whole world knew Notre Dame is their opponent, that the only guy they have is 88, and they still couldn't cover him. That bodes well for Jaheim Bell and or Kyle Morlock if you want to roll two tights out there. And then number 3, they have not seen receivers like this, either the physicality in the blocking game. They left their corners on islands. And if they win those battles on Saturday night, then that's a new reference point. But they haven't proven that they can do so against the Keon Coleman and presumably also Johnny Wilson. So these are 3 reasons I'm excited for this particular game. They also haven't seen a quarterback as mobile as Jordan, provided that he runs. That's also a big question mark, too.
It's always a big if with Jordan. You don't know if he's going to incorporate that or not. We don't know if he's physically right. I never know. Week to week, I never know if he's 100% or not.
But it feels like a spot on the schedule where if he can, he will. Again, you've got Wake and Pitt coming up. You probably don't need to go bells and whistles with Jordan's legs in those 2 games.
Yeah, and any of the big matchups that Florida State has any given week, if he's healthy, I'm running Jordan's ass. I'm running him to death in any of the big matchups because it changes the game, it changes the math, and opens everything else up. And so you're right. I think they will run him if he's healthy enough to run him. I never know. I mean, he's really hard to get a gauge on. He really is. And people think I'm being cynical, and people, think I'm taking shots that he's MJ Walker. To some extent, I think there's a little MJ Walker in him. And miraculously, after every one of the times his shoulders goes limp, he somehow finishes the game and is fine the next week. But I will say, I don't know what he's dealing with. And with no degree of certainty, I wonder, can he be utilized in that way? Can you run him 7 to 9 times in a game? I know that we've seen them come out before where they were determined to do it and to let the other team know, yeah, we'll run him. That changes everything when they do that, by the way. You can see it early on in games. When they do it, it changes the way teams have to play us.
He ran it enough last week, too. I think he'll be okay. I mean, was it a ton of design runs from Jordan? No. But, one of the best drives of the game is he rolls out. Jaheim comes off of his block. It's a 5-yard throw right in front of his face, and Jaheim runs for 30, and then it's Trey, then Jordan keeps. Yeah. And you're going to take a hit in that situation. So there's belief there. There's also a couple of scrambles, too, where, again, maybe it's not a design run. But
the willingness to do it, though, yeah.
That's what matters is the willingness to do it, because even Sam Hartman, as slow as his ass was for Notre Dame, made quite a few plays beyond the 4th and 16 that everybody remembers. Yeah. Beyond that play, he made a few with his legs. So, Jordan is willing enough to do that much. And I'm looking up the stats right now. He officially had 7 carries. There were a few sacks interspersed in there, but I'd say 3 to 5 runs. All right, if you could bump that up to about 8 in the game, I think, and I'm talking about true runs, I think you're in position here to make some noise.
It's Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, and Warchant TV.
Siri, tell me a joke. The past, present, and future walk into a bar. It was tense.
All jokes aside, the trained professionals at Mac & More Systems are serious about Apple products. For all your Mac repairs, call Mac & More Systems at 894-3622. 894-3622.
Your next chance to splash into some cash with Swain Pools and Spas to win $1,000 is coming up at 2 p.m. Listen out for the keyword, and all you got to do is text the keyword for a chance to win $1,000.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The bungalow chung, Jeff?
Is that what is the pork?
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of that nobody would know and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
This is an urgent alert for all radio listeners. Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas is inviting you to participate in a rare opportunity to put a brand new hot spring spa in your yard and make your hot tub dreams come true. From October 13th through October 23rd, all hot spring spas will be available for 0% interest financing for 60 months. For 10 days only, this is a rare opportunity available only at Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas on Greer Road. There are over 50 hot tubs in stock right now in their 12,000 square foot showroom. And from October 13th through the 23rd, you can pick your dream spa and take it home with 0% financing for 60 months. No extensions will be made on this offer. This is it for 10 days only. Take advantage of this incredibly hot offer from Hot Spring Spas from October 13th to October 23rd at Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas on Greer Road, just off Capitol Circle Northeast.
Welcome back to the Jeff Cameron Show, sponsored by Legendary Home Loans, a mortgage experience designed around speed, simplicity, and customer service. Before you buy your next home, contact our friend Shannon Young with Legendary Home Loans. Visit FSUHomeLoans.com. FSUHomeLoans.com.
You know, by the way, if somebody could ever figure out how to encapsulate or to build to a play. You know, I hear golfers say this all the time, Tom, and I still don't have a good answer. I've asked Trey Jones this. I hear golfers talk about it, and I don't think it's true. I don't. They always talk about getting your game ready for majors. So, like, a lot of people will talk about building to a place. Now, I do know this is true. Players will hit certain shots off of certain lies based on the upcoming major that they have, where they're going to have to hit shots like that. So that part makes sense to me. If you say, well, 2 weeks prior to the Masters, if I have a certain lie and I can hit this shot, or this shot, I'm going to hit the one that I most have to replicate at Augusta. Mm-hmm. So, and to see if I can do that. So you're preparing yourself in that way. But what's implied in that oftentimes is that there's also a mental aspect to this, to getting your body and mind right, not just shot shaping. And I've never quite understood. I've never got a clear answer on that. And the reason I bring any of this up is I'd really love to know, because if you watch the Phillies right now, you don't think for any second of any game that they're going to lose. Like, it's a feeling while you watch it. I mean, I know they bludgeoned them last night with 10 runs, but it is this is the hottest offense you've ever seen. And there's no sense that that's slowing down anytime soon. Like this, it would be right to suggest that we think the Phillies are going to blow everybody away and win the World Series. I think you're right. I think they will.
Well, they haven't lost to a National League team at home in the last two postseasons. Not once. Not one loss in the National League playoffs the last two postseasons.
And hell, their only loss these playoffs is that stupid-ass comeback in the late innings. It's great, right?
Yeah, no, well, it's just when you're in the zone, you're in the zone. I liken it to a former Brave out there for you former Braves. When Freddie Freeman is locked in, you will not strike him out. Yep. He will hit the ball hard, and it's just a matter of if your glove gets in the way of it. But here, you're not striking him out. He will walk, or he's going to hit the ball hard. These are the
that is spoken like a truly frustrated man who's watched it up close and personal.
Well, but when somebody's locked in like that, I mean, you just feel it. You're like, I can't get this guy out. It doesn't. I could throw the perfect pitch. He'll spit on it. Yep, that's ball one. All right, what else you got for me?
Yeah, it's so aggravating.
And I will paint black on the outer corner at 101, and he'll deflect it. It'll go back to the net. What else you got for me? And you're like, God bless. You're supposed to be a 30% commodity here. This is ridiculous, and it feels like 60%. So they're in the zone, and Schwarber can get that way too. And when he is,
well, yeah.
It's just, what sucks about that is he was on the open market for the world at a pretty cheap rate. It's because of the batting average, and obviously he's not exactly a Mensa defensively. He's never going to win a Gold Glove.
No.
But he wasn't like a $40 million player that everybody wanted and was getting in a bidding war for. And he's the total modern day tone setter for a top of a lineup. Average ain't great, but he will hit the the brakes off the ball.
If I'm a Phillies fan right now, you have to embrace and enjoy this in a way that very few baseball fans ever get to do. Like just this, no, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not a Phillies fan, if I'm better able to observe it than, say, a Phillies fan. Like if it's your team doing it, you're always looking around the corner for the next thing that's going to drop that causes you to go off the rails, because baseball's mean, and it just takes one thing for something to go wrong. Maybe you blow a game in the ninth or something like that, and all of a sudden, teams believe they can win. But I just watch games right now, and I'm like, well, I don't even know. Well, we're wasting our time. This game is not going to be close. I mean, you watch the first inning of games, even when they get out of the first inning, you're like, well, there were 7 hard hit balls just now.
Right.
7.
Right.
2 were foul. 1 was right at somebody. 1 was straight back to the backstop and hammered. You're kind of just like, every guy in that lineup right now looks like he is a menace.
I'm sure Major League Baseball is checking for trash cans, making sure there are no trash cans being hit. But yeah, it looks like they understand what's coming throughout
over and
the game.
over again.
But then the starting pitching's been brilliant too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Ranger Suarez the last couple of years in the postseason, his ERA is insane. Nola's ERA this postseason's under 1. Zach Wheeler, it hit, as somebody who watched the early part of his career in Mets orange and blue, control was always his issue. He would be cruising through 3 innings, and then he'd have 36 pitches to start the 4th. He'd walk out of the 4th inning with 65 pitches because he walked 3 dudes and gave up a couple of runs. He has no control issues anymore. Zero control issues. So when you've got the starting pitching and there's a belief in that clubhouse or the dugout that all I need is maybe 3 or 4 to win, I think you play free. I think it all works together. It's not quite football as the ultimate team game, but when you've got total confidence in what your starters are rolling out there, I think that frees you up as a hitter to not feel the pressure of the postseason moment.
Zach Wheeler's in his 4th season with the Phillies, and he's gotten better every season that he's been there. It's ridiculous.
F&A. When he left for Philly, it was all right. He's going to drive you nuts. No, he's going to drive you to the counter to buy championship hats is what he's going to drive you.
It's something, man. Baseball is just and meanwhile, Texas on the other side is doing all the same things. They can't lose right now in the postseason. Yep. It's kind of nuts. Everybody talks about how bad their bullpen is. Nobody can get to it. Nobody can get to their bullpen. So their starting pitching has been awesome too. So I guess people will consider Philadelphia, Texas, if it happens, a boring World Series, but I won't. I mean, we think right now these are 2 unstoppable forces. It's been absurd to watch them just breeze through the postseason. And it doesn't, I think we've all learned now that it doesn't matter at all how you get to the postseason, just that you play well once you do. And then something happens. And it's a silly game. It's a silly game that I love. I can't help but watch it. I know a lot of people when their team is out of it, which a lot of people that listen to us are Braves fans, are like, I'm done with baseball. That's fine. But it is weird to try to analyze the sport because you can go through long stretches of time being sure that a team is this one thing or not this thing. And the next thing you know, you're like, I don't even recognize this bunch like that. How did the Phillies not win 120 games? They're loaded.
Well, that's where they started very slowly, and I recall, give director credit behind the scenes. They started slowly. They were in 3rd, maybe 4th in the division.
Yeah, they were awful.
And you said, are they going to be okay? And he nodded. He went, they're going to be fine. I got to give him credit, man. He knows what he's looking at there. The question I have is, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe somebody in the chat does, not that we're live, but both teams had records of 90 and 72 this year. Who has home field? Because I think in the World Series for Texas versus Philly, that would matter to play in Texas first if you're the Rangers, because they do feel invincible. They have been in the National League playoffs invincible the last 2 seasons in Philadelphia. If it starts out outside of Dallas, I think that matters greatly for picking.
Funny you bring it up. Most of the time, you cannot quantify, cannot prove home field advantage in baseball matters in any way, shape, or form. And yet I think all of us watching the games would say it's pretty clear playing in Philadelphia is brutally difficult. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia is a place where I give them all the credit in the world. If you'll notice, boy, I'll tell you what, the alumni at Florida State would be furious having to go into Philadelphia because those fans are going to stand the entire game. First inning, towel waving, ready to roll. Man, if you go to a Florida State game, and these days I sit more in the stands than I ever have because I'm sitting with my dad and my kids, people are just pissed all the time about people standing. Oh, sit down. You're like, oh, good God. We must have I don't know how it's possible. We have like one of the oldest fan bases in all the world. It's nuts.
I thought you were going to say something else. Old, yes, that's fine. Yeah, in terms of demographic, it is fairly old.
It feels ancient. Like you go to a baseball game, we know what Hauser is. I've already talked about that. Go to basketball games, man, sleepy as hell. People are mad. All those ancient-ass people that have their tickets set up on, center court aren't standing.
Well, this is the thing. Once Florida State erects however many different suites in the center part of the stadium, you're going to get corporate dollars here, which will bring in younger people. But who has the money? Who has the disposable income? It's the older generations that have that. It's not like my generation is coming up from the top rope with a ton of cash. Look economically at the situations of growth yours is fine. You did great. Us coming out of college, not so much. So it's going to be, people who are either in their 45 plus years or specifically like the boomers, because there's no other sports professional franchise here in Tallahassee. So that's where all the people with the money are just crammed into the shady side and the alumni half.
It's my generation that would be able to do all the stuff that you're talking about. And I, for one, there are games to stand. There are moments to stand. Third down is a big one. You got to stand. Let's do that. Now, I did tell Corey this week, it's the closest I've come into having to reintroduce a scolding segment amongst the student population. I haven't had to do it in years. Way back in the day when you were listening to me driving around when you were a student, I would rip the students all the time. Yep. They were pathetic.
And you were right.
Were the worst.
You were correct.
They would show up really late to the game. They would never have a clue what they were doing once they were there. They were all it was just out of control. Now they've been great. They've been great for years and years and years. Until recently, this trend of starting to wave when we have the ball on offense just screams, look at our ignorant asses. It screams like a lack of football sophistication. Like if you were a fan from an opposing program and rolled into town and you saw that, you'd be like, look at these dumbasses. And you'd be right.
Yeah, it's funny how time flies, but just 15 short years ago in the stands at, Doak Campbell, you'd hear three things. You'd hear kids chanting for X, Xavier Lee, to come into the game. You'd hear for Drew Weatherford to be put into the game if X was on the field. And you'd hear the sounds of vomiting. Those would be the three things you would hear in my heyday, which is why after 2007, my buddy Chris, show contributor Chris, and I decided to buy the student season ticket for $200 and to go sit on the sunny side all the way at the brick wall up top so we could just have a more pleasurable experience.
Watch the damn game, right? Yeah.
But somewhere, I think it was the Oklahoma game, really, in 11, where the tide changed. They were in the stands, the students were, at like 5 o'clock. Whatever time the gates opened, they were.
But I remember pleading with everybody because we had such a good time in Norman, even though we got stomped. And I was saying, do the right thing by these Oklahoma fans. They were really good to us out in Norman. Make sure everybody shows. I'm not the reason, but I was certainly trying to get the message out that, hey, look, those people were good to us out in Norman. Let's do the right thing.
Yeah. And then, that's obviously the Jimbo era. In 12, there were a lot of expectations, so they showed up. 13 and so forth. That they've been pretty good about it. The thing I would say is maybe it's when you are in a lost decade or a lost half decade and you're coming out of it, you're just not as sharp. You've been beaten down. And now this weekend is a great opportunity. It is a 7:30 kick. It's a top 20 opponent. Do the right thing, students. Regain your edge, just like the team. Regain the edge. Because I don't blame you. If you had to watch for the entirety of your career and you were a senior, the Willie era, the COVID season, which you could barely get into the game anyway, and then 21, you might have been beaten down a little bit. But now there are fewer excuses. We won 10 games last year. We're a lot better.
Yeah, and don't start the wave when your offense has the ball. Really, the wave sucks universally at all times, always, no matter when it's done. But it's especially stupid to do when your offense has the ball. Yeah, not what we do, guys. Let's just get it together. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Dino fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, Your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
Wooden Glass has been taking care of business since 1945. When you call Wooden Glass, you're dealing with experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best. Like Wooden's top-of-the-line bath enclosures that provide style and luxury at an affordable price. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Wooden Glass. We'll help you design it and install it. Wooden Glass, the first name in glass replacement. Call 222-5781.
I'm Franklin, and I've been a Paul's Termite technician for well over 10 years. Working for a great company like Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a blessing for my family and myself. I get tremendous satisfaction knowing that the work I do helps protect most people's biggest investment, their homes, the place where they raise their families and build lifelong relationships. Paul's is a company that stands behind their commitments to customers and employees, and that makes me proud to represent them.
I'm Jay. Having the privilege to work with people like Franklin and all of our employees is truly an honor. There is no doubt that the staff of Paul's Termite and Pest Control is the best in our industry. All of our people are local, and local really does mean something. We're North Floridians. Our kids go to school here. We shop here. We build relationships here, and we honor our commitments. To all of our customers, thanks for trusting us to protect your family, pets, and home.
For the elimination of termites, any other pests, and a greener lawn too, call Paul's. We'll get them all.
Honey, I just got a text from Dave. He wants us to come over for a barbecue. What's our excuse for not going?
Oh, no need for an excuse anymore because Dave got a new girl from Hearth and Patio.
Oh, thank goodness. Dave, we will be happy to join y'all this weekend, and congrats on the new grill from Hearth and Patio. My wife said she would bring potato salad.
Hearth and Patio invites you to elevate your grilling game this year with one of their amazing grills from Fire Magic, Royal Master, or Blaze Grills. Call them today, 850-727-4282. That's 850-727-4282, or visit them online at hearthpatiotallahassee.com. Hearth and Patio, making barbecues great in the Sunshine State.
Honey, Dave said no raisins in the potato salad this time.
Call them today, 850-727-4282. That's 850-727-4282, or visit them online at hearthpatiotallahassee.com.
The kids are back in school, and that means more homework, more projects, more research, and more screen time for the kids. These days, you can't get much done without using a phone, tablet, or computer, so you'll need all your devices working properly. Macklemore Systems is here to help. Not only can you get repairs, upgrades, and replacements, but you can also get expert advice, guidance, and consultations on how to maximize the use of your Apple gear. The Trapper Keepers are gone, and in this digital world, Macklemore Systems are your digital experts. Online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness. 2 Tallahassee locations, Midtown on Thomasville Road and Northside in the Village Common Shopping Center. Online at orangetheoryfitness.com.
Next year, Tom, remind me when we start the NFL season, we're going to get the listeners involved again. We're going to do a Survivor contest on the JCS.
Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
I really have dropped the ball on this each of the last few years. We're going to have all of our listeners or anybody who wants to participate. We'll do it for like a grand charity. It'll be awesome. We can really do it. And somebody's got to win something. So we'll get somebody involved in all this that wants to sponsor it.
Right.
But
So
like,
it'll be like a prize, but it's a cash entry. Yeah.
Yeah. And and we'll do it, it's primarily going to charity, but somebody can actually win something. I've been studying the Survivor pool that they do out in, there's several of them. But one of the things that I love when you look at the analytics reports out in Vegas, and you try to, it's a delicate balance of trying to, like, as a selector, as a picker, you're trying to stay present while also looking ahead to the future, and because you can't use the same teams twice. So you get to a point in the season, and I think it starts now, where you are really in some rarefied air. Like one of the contests that I follow had 90,000 people enter it. They're down to under 9,000. I mean, that just tells you how hard this is to do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've already seen massive upsets. Think about what would have happened last weekend if the Giants had beaten Buffalo. I mean, it was that close. And we just saw the Eagles lose to the Jets. And so a lot of people, you know, probably lost on that. I mean, yeah.
And San Francisco lost to Cleveland. Like, this was a massive weekend for turnover in that department. And because you're thinking backup third string quarterback really for Cleveland. And here's San Francisco rolling into town. They're a machine. This should be really easy. And then even more so, if you're waiting until just before the window and you see that there's a pregame kerfuffle, you would think, you know, 49ers, oh, you idiots, you woke up the 49ers. They're going to win by 30. My an extended family member of mine won one of these, and it was a big win. I mean, 5 figures, solid prize. And they're sweating bullets in week 15. I think it made it all the way to week 15.
Well, I'll give you a sample ballot of a guy that I follow who does a really good job and bets this out in Vegas, and he has a website. And anyhow, he this is what he did in by the week. Okay, so his picks so far this year: Commanders week 1, Bills week 2, Chiefs week 3, 49ers week 4, Dolphins week 5, Rams week 6. And he's brought up to the fact that for most people, by going into week 7, the Bills, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Eagles are likely all unavailable to you now. And that would make sense. Like you probably use those picks at this point by now.
Yeah.
And so you're sitting here. So like you would look at, here's what you'd have to consider this week. If you do have Kansas City available to you, they play the Chargers. I don't want to touch that game. If you've got the Bills available to you, coming off that Giants game, you may not want to trust them, but they are playing the Patriots, Tom. I mean, but it's at New England.
If you've got Buffalo, I'm looking at the slate right now. I think that's the play. If you've got
what about 49ers at Vikings?
That offense, well, it's without Justin Jefferson, and they should be angry after losing San Francisco. But I mean, look, if they don't have McCaffrey, that changes things too. I don't know. I think if you're weighing and you've got those two options available, which you wouldn't, and I get your point, but if you're looking at Bills, Patriots, and then also you're looking at 49ers, Vikings, I think Bills, Patriots by a mile is the pick there.
So what I like is if you don't have any of those, you get into the juicy stuff where you start trying to pick, and you know, these guys all look at like drop back EPA and, you know, EPA per play and, you know, drop back EPA 23rd in the league against 21st expected EPA, you know. And so like all that stuff is what you're looking at. And you're just trying to, like, one of the best matchups using those metrics is you would take Seattle over Arizona. How comfortable are you going to feel picking Seattle over Arizona?
Oh, that's a toughie. Oh, man.
But that, like, you're running out of teams. Like, you could take the Rams or the Steelers, but you don't like either one of those. I mean, all of this is.
Yeah, I mean, like, you would think you would want to take Green Bay over Denver, but.
Oh, no, I'm not. Jordan Love on the road? No.
But it's Denver, you know.
I don't care.
Dolphins, Eagles is a non-starter. You don't
get bunch of non-starters.
Lions, Ravens.
No.
Would you lean on?
No Falcons, Bucks. No.
Okay, I was waiting. No. Sorry, that's a loss in translation. You wouldn't lean on the Bucks there, maybe? No.
Look at these games, Tom. You're scrolling through them. There's none of them. They're all nonsense. Washington and the Giants. You're not touching that game. You're not touching the Browns and the Colts. You're not touching the Raiders and the Bears. That is awful. Jags and the Saints. No chance. There are no games.
Yeah.
You're taking you could take Seattle over Arizona because they're hosting Arizona. And the numbers scream take Seattle over Arizona, but you're holding your nose and taking Seattle over Arizona, probably because you don't have the Bills and you don't have the Chiefs available to you. From here on out, it's just like, ooh, I don't know.
No, I think what you do is you probably pick 5 teams out of a hat, and that way you let the hat decide, and you leave it there to submit, like on your desk or on your TV stand, and then you watch and see if there are any surprise inactives on Sunday morning, just looking for a miracle that somebody woke up with the flu and the quarterback's not available and it changes the course of the game. Or, wow, surprising development. On Thursday at practice, apparently, 2 offensive linemen went down for Arizona. They're like, all right, now I'm really all in on Seattle. But other than that, in a week like this, if I don't have one of the surefire 2 picks, I think I'm putting names in a hat. I don't even want to be the one to make the pick. Just let fate decide.
A lot of people, and this is what, let me ask your philosophy on this and I'll move it along. But I think it's an interesting one. I think you and I could go in together on one of these things and not get into a fist fight.
Yeah.
But most people do end up screaming at each other because if we join our monies, and these entry fees for the big ones are not small. So like you and I are putting a couple grand in each. All right. So let's say it's 4,000 to ante up and we both put 2 in. Okay. All right. Or 5,000 and we put 2,500 in. That's not nothing, man.
No.
Now we could win a lot. 6 figures in some cases. Okay. So here we are, or more. Can you imagine calling your best friend and saying, all right, man, I'm really feeling good about Seattle, Arizona. And your friend going, are you nuts?
No.
I'm not doing it.
No, well, somebody's doing something. That's the hard part. Buy my share out. Buy it out. I want out. I'm done. Give me my money back.
Well, you have to come up. I'll warn anybody when we do this next year, and ours isn't going to be for millions of dollars. But I think you've got to, go in with a friend whose opinion you value greatly about the topic of the NFL, okay? And then you also have to have a tiebreaker because you're going to come into a week, like week 7, like this week, where you've used up all the obvious ones. You're like, all right, listen, Miami is going to hammer Atlanta, so I'm going to take my whatever, right? You get the drift. Any given week. But there are 2 scenarios that are always difficult. One is you don't want to take the team that's favored by 30. That's survive and advance mentality, but you're going to need that team later on. So you take a lesser one, like, can I get away with using the Raiders this week? Like, when can I get away with using the Falcons? When can I get away with using the Bucks? When can I get away with using Houston?
Yeah.
Name your teams, right?
This is where a mutual friend of ours would put a spreadsheet together, or I suppose, given that this is what she does on a day-to-day basis, I could have Jamie, my wife, put together a spreadsheet of like green, yellow, red for go zone for teams, and then do a cross analysis of what the best matchups are for the season. So that way,
that's the way to do it.
I would love to use, I would love to save Kansas City, but you know what? The next 3 games are in doubt for them. 3 good matchups. It's a weird part of the schedule. Take them now, and let's worry about week 8 when we get to week 8, that kind of a thing.
It's tough. As the weeks go by, you end up kind of saying, look, at some point in time, we're going to have to take these middle-of-the-road teams where it's a 50-50 deal, and you got to survive it and move on, and then save some big daddies for the tough weeks. When we get into week 8, week 9, week 10, I need to be able to fall back on the Chiefs. I need to be able to fall back on the Bills. I need to be able to fall back on this year's Dolphins or whatever it is, any given year. Because there's so many teams in a salary cap league that are just average as all hell. They're all just average as hell. The Bucks are an average football team. The Saints are an average football team. There are some really bad teams. Carolina is a horrible football team. So, yes, any given week you can say, who's playing Carolina? I'm taking that team. But you get my drift. Like, if you want to take somebody against the Texans, you better be careful. They're not terrible. So, it's one of these moments where you're kind of like, I don't know what to do.
Maybe we could put a spin on it and make it like Florida State's conference survivor pool, or we pick
that's fun. Yeah.
2 or 3 conferences. You probably need a wider berth. So like 2 or 3 conferences worth of teams. And then it's a college survivor pool. Because I know what you do. You just pick against Syracuse every week is what you do moving forward.
Syracuse. I would never pick against them the first 3 weeks of the season when they're playing the Sisters of the Poor and they're going to rack up all kinds of stats, and then they're going to turn around and play somebody with a pulse, get their ass kicked. It's funny what ends up happening with them. They'll beat a Purdue. Okay, and then, they beat Purdue. Well, Purdue sucks to high heaven. Stop it. And then we're going to watch that, and then people will be like, well, they had a nice win against Wake. Wake sucks to high heaven. Stop that. And then when they play somebody who's any good at all, ass kickings. And the other thing that's weird, and I know he's probably endeared by our fan base because I've never heard anybody praise an opposing team's players more than I hear Dino Babers praise Florida State's players. It's crazy the way he prattles on and on. If I were a Syracuse fan, I'd be like, man, just shut the hell up. Tired of this nonsense. The first time he gets a chance to talk, he's just like, well, my God, I don't know how anybody beats Florida State. I mean, there's never been a better player than Keon Coleman. I've never seen anybody the likes of Jordan Travis at quarterback. It's excessive. It's absurd. I mean, those are good players, but he can't stop himself over and over and over again. I'd be like, man, this is manifest destiny. You got no chance to win. You just told your team you're playing the greatest team that we've ever seen in the history of college football. And he plays it that way early in games. You're like, what are you doing, dude? First drive of the second half, screwed. I'm going to run up the middle. We got zero chance to win this game.
Yeah, I if it wasn't for the calling and situations of certain plays or, to kick down 21 when your only chance is to go for it on fourth down.
Of course.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, I would say that all of that is rhetoric just to deflect from the fact that his team's not good enough and he's trying to set the tone. But when you call the game to mirror that, because, like, for example, he says in the postgame that Garrett Schrader had food poisoning or whatever it was, and that's true. Fair. I'll take you at your word. But Garrett Schrader got you down into Florida State's territory, down 21 points. He was the quarterback to get you over midfield. So how the hell did he get there? Was he, did he have a bag that he was going into as he was getting down the field? So if he's good enough to get you there and you're in 4th and 5, call a damn pass. What the hell's wrong with you?
I don't get it. I don't get it. It's very strange. I get the idea of setting and tempering expectations for your fan base, letting them know, like, this might be a toughie. I got it. And he's had a lot of injuries. I mean, they've lost they lost their best player. I mean, that's a tough one right off the bat. You don't have too many good players, and they lost their best one.
Yeah.
I get that. But, man, on and on and on, we're like, well, that Florida State program, and it's when you've won 35 national championships in a row, it's tough to ask us to go in there and win. I mean, come on, man. Boston College nearly beat Florida State. Get it together. Hour number 2, forthcoming. Stay with.
Fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
Orthopedic pain and injury deserves effective treatment options now, so you feel better fast. Whether you have joint pain that won't subside or an urgent orthopedic injury, we are the specialists to get you back on your feet. And there's only one thing better than fast care: expert care. We believe you deserve both. TOC, only experts. Learn more at teamtoc.com.
Let me tell you what T-Spark stands for. It stands for strength, commitment, teamwork, and heart. We don't ever quit until we've got nothing left to give. Our team is unstoppable. Want a guaranteed win? Call T-Spark Enterprises for your next roofing or construction project. We conquer all peaks. T-SparkConstruction.com. License number CCC 1331204.
This is an urgent alert for all radio listeners. Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas is inviting you to participate in a rare opportunity to put a brand new hot spring spa in your yard and make your hot tub dreams come true. From October 13th through October 23rd, all hot spring spas will be available for 0% interest financing for 60 months. For 10 days only, this is a rare opportunity available only at Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas on Greer Road. There are over 50 hot tubs in stock right now in their 12,000 square foot showroom. And from October 13th through the 23rd, you can pick your dream spa and take it home with 0% financing for 60 months. No extensions will be made on this offer. This is it for 10 days only. Take advantage of this incredibly hot offer from Hot Spring Spas from October 13th to October 23rd at Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas on Greer Road, just off Capitol Circle Northeast.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take-home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat-screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Don't go anywhere. Your chance to win $1,000 is coming up next on Real Talk 93.3 WVFT, Gretna, Tallahassee.
Yo, J Balvin here. Verizon just hooked me up with a new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium. How can you get one? By switching to my plan at the Verizon store, get the amazing new iPhone 15 Pro on them. When you trade in any iPhone, any model, any condition, guaranteed. And listen to my new song, Dientes, on your way to get the new iPhone 15 Pro.
Don't miss out. Switch to my plan from Verizon today. It's your Verizon. $999.99, 128 GB only. Device payment purchase or full retail purchase with new smartphone line and unlimited ultimate plan required. Less $1,000 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right?
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, pass me the intercom thingy.
Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Don't pay for water, pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods.
Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
There's no doubt that buying a home can feel overwhelming, especially if it's your first home. You're worried about location, school zones, square footage, inspections, insurance, loan approvals, interest rates, and of course the price. Buying a home could be the most significant investment you've ever made. But there's good news. You have our friends at Legendary Home Loans, and they're on your side and in your corner. They're going to go to bat for you. Shannon Young from Legendary Home Loans can help first-time home buyers get up to $25,000 for your down payment. For first responders, veterans, teachers, military, and healthcare workers, and that's not all, Shannon is an expert navigator of the home loan terrain, and you can trust that he's going to get you the most competitive interest rates and guide you through the process every step of the way. Plus, Shannon will also get your closing costs reduced. It's the Hometown Heroes program at Legendary Home Loans. Give them a call today, 844-FSU-LOAN. That's 844-FSU-LOAN. Or go to FSUHomeLoans.com and ask for Shannon Young.
NMLS number 22700146.
It's time to splash into cash with Swain Pools and Spas. Here is your next keyword.
Take. T-A-K-E. Take. T-A-K-E. Take.
Text that keyword now to 508-777-1000. That's 508-777-1000 for your chance to win $1,000. Sponsored by Swain Pools and Spas.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time for the Jeff Cameron Show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hour number 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV on a Balls McWednesday. Excuse the nasally voice, but we're recording from home today. Didn't want to bring the sickness into the studio. I'm required to tell you that this is recorded. Not by much. Only a couple hours before the show would start, but wanted to get content out there. It's a big week, Florida State and Duke. It's an exciting week. Not one that necessarily we expected at the start of the season, so give Duke some credit here. Should be a fun game. Tom, I realized something. that I didn't know the answer to last hour when we were talking, and I looked it up during the break. Texas has home field advantage in the World Series. And what's interesting about that is, remember, they tied with Houston during the regular season for the division, but Houston had home field advantage because they won the head-to-head. And so they were without home field advantage in a pivotal series. And then what you found out was that the reason that they have head-to-head over the Phillies is both teams won 90 games, and they swept the Phillies in the regular season.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. And again, in a lot of situations in professional sports, that doesn't matter a great deal. In this spot, I think it would. And that's assuming that Texas finishes the job. I mean, there's a lot more of the ALCS to go. I feel like the NLCS is
I think it's over. Yeah,
just about over. But Houston has something to say about it still, I think, in the ALCS.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's right. I saw something, and somebody asked me this question, and I don't view it this way necessarily, but I'm fond of bringing up Bill Connolly's rankings when we get to the midway point and the SP Plus stuff that he does, while also noticing, of course, that it's a little bit different. And you've brought this up before too, which is that his ranking isn't a current ranking. It's one that factors in things from a year ago, things that are happening now, but things that are still going to happen will adjust those rankings as well. But I think a lot of fans look at that ranking and they'll say, why does Bill Connolly always have us at like 8th or 7th? Well, SP Plus a couple of years ago had us outside the top 25. And we've moved all the way into the 15th spot, I think, before this year, and now into the top 10. So Florida State is steady rising. And that's a better way of projecting into next year and the year after, because it takes into account recruiting rankings, wins, significant wins, wins when you were an underdog, wins in neutral fields, wins against Power 5 teams, and all of those sorts of things.
It's better for that, but it's not better for the moment that we live in right here, right now. And I hate capital H that it is featured on ESPN as though it is some sort of, current timepiece of a great representation of who is who, and because he does it every week with the undefeated teams that are left standing. Somehow Florida State, when there are 6 undefeated teams left in the country, is going to be rated 9th when there are 6 undefeated teams left. And that's coming soon, because somebody's got to get eliminated this week between Ohio State and Penn State. So one is down there, but it's just for all group of 5 teams not named. I think we're ahead of North Carolina.
We're currently 7th. We are ahead of North Carolina.
It's incredible to me that you can rank Oklahoma, for example, ahead of Florida State in anything. It's not. That's just given everything that we've seen so far this season. I don't understand how you do that.
So Oklahoma is 6th, Florida State is 7th, and I think they're valuing the Oklahoma win over Texas more than they are our win over, say, LSU or a 2-loss Clemson team. Who's unranked.
Yeah.
But that's to answer your question. That's what they're saying. They're saying the Oklahoma win is more impressive than anything Florida State's done.
I disagree. But
So the thing about that is that's not completely unreasonable. If LSU loses another 2 games, and there's a good chance they will, all of a sudden that win will not be all that valued, unfortunately. I'll still care about it because I remember what it was when we played the game. And I'll still point out that this defense dominated LSU's offense, which is elite every week, dominated that offense in the second half of that game to go get us the win. And oddly, and you would agree with me on this, as time goes by the way, Florida State moved up 1 in SP rankings this week. They didn't go down. They moved up 1.
Woo.
Now, let me tell you why, and I think this is going to continue to happen. One of the many reasons why. It's not one factor solely. As this season goes on, Clemson's going to keep winning. Clemson's defense is going to continue to stymie everybody they play. Now, their offense is up and down. There's no getting around that. Their offense is kind of, it's not great. It's not great. But their defense is really good. And it's going to continue to be good. And those metrics, those numbers are going to show just how good they are on defense. And that's not going to go away. And every week that passes, when those numbers prove how good that defense is, and those wins begin to pile up in that column, Florida State's win over Clemson is going to look really good. Really good.
Yeah,
It's just that at the time that it happened, it didn't, because Clemson had lost to Duke and nobody thought much of them.
Which is what I'm saying, where the win over Texas on a neutral site is not as impressive as stopping LSU's offense and then going on the road and getting past a Clemson team with that defense. That's more impressive. That's ironclad. You can't argue that Oklahoma's win over Texas on a neutral field carries more weight than those two accomplishments by Florida State at this point in the season. Now, Oklahoma's got, more resume builders to come as the weeks go on, but that's the issue that I have. And that extends out beyond Oklahoma. I'm just picking on them because they're the team that is the Johnny-come-lately. They weren't even in the top 10 until they beat Texas, and everybody falls over themselves and says, oh, you beat Texas. Oh, my God, you must be so legitimate, as though Texas has been this bastion of, quality in college football for years and years and years. Maybe it's that Alabama's down a little bit too, and we're playing the transitive game with Alabama a little too loose and free. But I would extend that out to Ohio State. I would extend that out to some other teams that are ahead of Florida State in the rankings. Because I'll bet you if USC was undefeated at this point with high-scoring win after high-scoring win, 48-45, somehow they'd still be ranked ahead of Florida State in this situation, which is where I call BS on using SP Plus as a tool of today. It should be a tool of what is the last 3 years for your program, and it should be a tool as a predictor of what's to come in like March. But it shouldn't be used as something that the committee might consider on October the 18th.
Well, I dare say, I'm not sure that maybe USC would be, Tom, but currently they are like behind an awful lot of teams. They're behind James Madison, for example. So I'm not, and we're not real sure that James Madison would beat USC. So I don't get as mad about it. I will say we're moving up in it now, and we're going to continue to move up for the reasons that we just gave. LSU is going to continue to score points and garner wins, and Clemson's defense is going to continue to dominate people, and we're just going to mosey on up. Now, the other piece of good news is when they rank them among, as you alluded to, when he ranks them against the undefeated teams, we're going to skyrocket in that poll as long as we keep winning because so many teams are playing each other. Obviously, Penn State, Ohio State, for example, are both ahead of us. Well, they play each other.
Yep.
There you go. Somebody's got to go. So I said it last week, taking on down the road time in college football. It is taking on down the road time. And last week, it was taking on down the road, USC. A couple of weeks ago, taking on down the road, Notre Dame. Before that, it was taking on down the road. You keep doing it. Taking on down the road, Texas. Taking on down the road. These teams are all going to get beat. They're playing each other. Yep. Now, it will get interesting, and it already is, and somewhat nerve-wracking when all of the taking on down the road teams find a way to rectify and keep winning. And then if we were to fall somehow, some way, now we get into who are the best one-loss teams, and that truly is a beauty pageant, and that really is frustrating, but it's also always been the problem in college football.
Yeah, correct. It has always been the problem in college football, but that is where the precedent that is being set now would influence that discussion. And that's where I get annoyed. Because let's say, I'll go back to Oklahoma. Let's say Oklahoma has one loss and Florida State has one loss.
Yeah.
And they both win conference championships, and Florida State beats North Carolina, and Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma State could lose, Oklahoma could lose to Oklahoma State, beat Texas again, or something along those lines. Are you sure that Oklahoma is better than Florida State and more deserving of a college football playoff spot than Florida State? Because I feel like the conversation we're having now about these types of metrics would suggest that that's what the committee is going to come to the conclusion about, because of the numbers that they're seeing from a resource like SP Plus. So that is where my concern lies, is when you're looking for an insurance marker. I believe Florida State has earned an insurance marker with multiple one-loss teams, but it's not being discussed that way. The get-out-of-jail-free card seems to have disappeared, and I can't really understand all that much why, because I think by the end of the season, LSU and Clemson are going to be high-quality wins, but it'll be too late because we'll have talked about them as though they're not quality wins.
Maybe. Let's keep going here. I know we're all panicking a little bit, but remember, another resource is the AP, as much as we roll our eyes at that. And Florida State's number 4 in the AP, only behind Georgia, Michigan, and Ohio State. And they're soon to be ahead. If Florida State wins this weekend, they're going to be either there where they are currently or higher up. Penn State's behind them in the AP. Oklahoma's behind them in the AP. Obviously, Washington is as well. So, I mean, there are teams that are beginning to fall out of those rankings. You're going to be all right. So just keep winning and let the others fall by the wayside.
Yeah, you're undefeated. There's not going to be an issue here. Everybody agrees on that. It's just, I think.
But who would the loss be to that you could survive it? Because admittedly, we think the second best team in the ACC is either Clemson or North Carolina. Well, you've already beaten Clemson. So the second best team we think is North Carolina. Well, you couldn't lose to them unless you played them in the ACC championship game.
Right.
So I guess if you lost in the ACC championship game, it would almost be difficult to make an argument that you're going to go because at that point, Carolina's going over you.
Well, there has been a precedent of 2 ACC teams making the playoff before. You need some help around you, but that was the COVID year when Notre Dame was a part of the ACC. So it's not like it hasn't happened in the past. But I think Notre Dame's brand carries a little bit more weight in that discussion because, let's be honest, it's a committee room and people love to worship Notre Dame as much as any school in the country, even though since Lou Holtz, they haven't been very much. So it's a difficult lift. But, if you're talking about the Big 12, who could Oklahoma lose to and survive?
They don't really have another game that they should lose. I mean, Oklahoma plays Kansas, and we'll see if they're healthy at Kansas by the time they play that game. I don't really see a loss there. I guess a rivalry game against Oklahoma State, but that's not a great Oklahoma State team this year.
Right.
I don't think so. The problem we have is, again, who could you lose to and survive it? Because at this point, let's say Miami loses Saturday, right? Or Miami play Clemson this Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say they lose this Saturday. Miami will have 3 losses. If you were to lose to them, that's catastrophic. You're done. If you lose to Duke this weekend, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble. If you lose, the only other candidate it would be on the road to Florida. And wouldn't that get intriguing? Now, I don't know what Florida's going to look like by the time we play them then. I mean, is that a 6-6 Florida team? Is that a 5-6 Florida team and they get to 6-6 with the win? Or is that a 7-4 Florida team when we play them? I don't know. It will matter. It will matter. Now, I'm not saying we're going to lose to them, but I'm trying to pick a team you could lose to that the committee would then say, oh, it happens.
Isn't it fair to say, there's always a yeah, but with Florida State is the hard part. It just feels like in those discussions, there's a lot of yeah, but. And yeah, but what else? But who else would be my point is who else has done, if you look at, for example, Power 5 wins, Florida State, North Carolina, and Louisville, the only teams with 5 so far. Florida State has a neutral win over LSU and a road win at Clemson. I mean, it's just that resume still, while it's not as sparkling as we thought it would be when you're 4-0, that, you'd have 1 loss LSU out there and 1 loss Clemson out there because they both lost to Florida State and they're in the top 15. It's not as sparkling as we thought it could be in the preseason. It doesn't mean that there are many teams out there with a better resume to this point, and we're at the halfway or past the halfway point of the season. There aren't many other teams in the top 10 that have a resume as good as this one. Not yet, and not even close, really, in some cases.
North Carolina's number 10 in the country. They don't have a better resume than Florida State. Oregon is who I meant to say, not Washington earlier. Oregon had fallen to 9. They don't have a better resume than Florida State, obviously, with a loss. Texas has a loss now. They don't have a better resume than Florida State. Penn State plays this weekend against Ohio State. So this will be a moot point between those 2 teams that are in the top 10. Oklahoma should drub UCF. Washington takes on Arizona State. I think Washington's going to keep winning, but if you look ahead at Washington's schedule, I will tell you, Tom, this is not an easy schedule for them moving forward. And that is where you get kind of excited because if they struggle, and the Pac-12 is legitimately good this year.
Right, but doesn't everybody rally around that narrative too quickly? Like there needs to be more evidence to shake out here. I agree that it's good. No, there's no doubt that it's good. But are we sure that the game that we saw was a battle of 2 top 10 teams or 2 top 15 teams this past weekend? Like, do we know that for sure? That Oregon is because Oregon barely beat Texas Tech. So, are we sure that Oregon is this great marker that helps determine what Washington is in terms of playoff potential? Yeah, I don't know that there's enough data for that.
Well, luckily, I guess we would argue, and this is true of everybody, we're halfway through the season. So, as far as Oregon goes right now, you're right. We'll see what they become. The rest of the way, I mentioned how tough it is for Washington. They play at Stanford, at USC. They play Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State. There's a chance to lose in there. And they could all end up beating each other up if this situation continues. And as far as the other teams in that marker, sorry, I was looking at I wanted to get that up there for you too, Oregon, because it is going to matter to Florida State. Let's take a look at who else Oregon has. Oregon has Washington State, followed by at Utah, versus Cal, Southern Cal, at Arizona State, and then Oregon State. So we would need them to lose another game if this turns into a bunch of one-loss teams arguing about their resume, I think. And,
the SEC, there's a path for the SEC, too, to bow out of this whole thing still. Now with
if
Bauer,
Alabama loses one more time and they win the West, they're out.
Right. Well, LSU could beat them. That's a decent matchup for LSU against Alabama. And then Georgia, oddly enough, without Bowers, they still have to play Ole Miss, which is a strange matchup. Isn't that weird? Tennessee becomes a game that's in play if Bowers is not a part of the equation for Georgia, which he won't be. So you could find a way for a lot of these teams. If you set the over-under right now at 2.5 for college football playoff, undefeated teams in that field of 4, you could argue either way, the under or the over in that situation.
God, I think I would lean towards the under.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think there'll be 3 undefeated teams. Do you?
If there are 2, and Florida State is not one of them, at that point, I do think Florida State's resume would be strong enough to get one of those top 4 seeds, assuming they win the conference championship.
And once again, the evidence to that would be that you have a game this Saturday against the top 25 team. So that's another win under your belt. If you get it, it would be undeniable at that point. You'd be talking about beating LSU on a neutral field, beating Clemson on the road, and Clemson's going to keep winning, guys. I mean, and we kind of need them to.
There's 2 other points for Clemson out there. So if they keep winning, let's say they win out, they will have
10-2.
10-2. They will have beaten this week in Miami, whatever. That's getting less and less important. They will have beaten Notre Dame because they play Notre Dame, and they will also have beaten North Carolina.
Yes, their argument would be we have a loss to a top 5 Florida State team in overtime, and we have a fluke loss the first game of the season against Duke, who also is a top 20 team.
Yeah.
They would be like, we're the best 2-loss team in the country, and they may be right. They may be right. I kind of think they are. I mean, they're already maybe the best 2-loss team in the country. That defense is going to play with anybody. Florida State is going to – listen, we already understand this. Let's say they lost to Florida. I hate doing this. I just keep bringing them up because I'm trying to find a non-conference game, Tom. So
yeah, it's hard with this back half of the schedule to find, beyond this weekend, which I don't think is going to happen, but it's hard to find one. You really have to turn over rocks to try and develop a way that Florida State's going to lose a game here over the next.
Right, but let's say just for this argument's sake, let's say there are 2 undefeated teams and 2 one-loss teams. Okay, so that's what's going to make up the Final 4, and we're one of 7 teams that have 1 loss, 5 teams that have 1 loss. How do we get in? Well, we get in by virtue of wins over LSU, Clemson, Duke, Miami, North Carolina in the ACC championship game.
That's good enough.
That's a really good resume.
Yep.
That's actually an awesome resume.
Yep. But this all supposes that there are at minimum 2, or at maximum 2 undefeated teams in the field. So there are 2 slots for a 1-loss conference champion. We would get one of those.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. The winner between Michigan and Ohio State. Well, let's see what happens with Penn State, Ohio State. I shouldn't be so dismissive of Ohio State, but I brought this up yesterday on Headlines. James Franklin's record against Michigan and Ohio State is god-awful. He beats everybody that they're supposed to beat and nobody that is even or better. He's like 1-8 against Ohio State, I think he is at this point.
He's also poking at your throat with a voodoo doll right now.
Man, he's killing me. It's Jeff Cameron Show. Jeff Cameron Show loves Zaxby's.
Yeah.
Hey, delicious Zaxby's. I could use a warm, delicious Zaxby's sandwich right now, chicken sandwich right now, or that Philly, which surprised me. I told you all that last week. It was really good. With that Zax sauce, but that tasty, thick top bun with the split cut and all the goodness. Yes, let's do it. Throw some pickles on there.
Yes. They also have pickle chips that you can grab for a side if you want some pickle chips in addition to the crinkle cut fries. It's a home game again. I think this weekend is a multi-meal tailgate. Ooh. So what I would do if I were you out there, I would go to the let's see, how many Zaxby's? Blank.
For the Duke week, I think it's 66.
Oh boy. Okay. Sign of the devil. 66 Zaxby's are out there. I know there's another digit in there, but 66 Zaxby's. I would go there. That's how you start your day. So when the lot's open, you bring the platter, you break out the platter so you can pick on it all day.
Yeah.
And then after you've had your fill of crinkle cuts and pickle chips and the platter or the chicken Phillies, that's when you break out the grill as it cools down around 5:30, 6.
I like it. I see where you're working there. That's all right. Well, so you're right. You got the platters. You got the sandwiches. Now we ramp it back up a couple hours from game time. I got to tell you, I think we're doing a flat steak that we've marinated and really put a good rub in. We're doing it up.
Well, yeah, that's right. You rub it in there. And the thing is, if you want to reheat something you got, so you can put the chicken Philly in foil and then throw that puppy on the grill and then warm it right back up.
Keep it off the fire. Keep it off the fire. That's the key.
That's the key.
Most things, especially if you're doing any sort of fish, got to keep it off the fire, guys. Chef Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Dino fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
Widden Glass has been taking care of business since 1945. When you call Widden Glass, you're dealing with experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best. Like Widden's top-of-the-line bath enclosures that provide style and luxury at an affordable price. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Widden Glass. We'll help you design it and install it. Widden Glass, the first name in glass replacement. Call 222-5781.
I'm Franklin, and I've been a Paul's Termite technician for well over 10 years. Working for a great company like Paul's Termite and Pest Control is a blessing for my family and myself. I get tremendous satisfaction knowing that the work I do helps protect most people's biggest investment, their homes, the place where they raise their families and build lifelong relationships. Paul's is a company that stands behind their commitments to customers and employees, and that makes me proud to represent them.
I'm Jay. Having the privilege to work with people like Franklin and all of our employees is truly an honor. There is no doubt that the staff of Paul's Termite and Pest Control is the best in our industry. All of our people are local, and local really does mean something. We're North Floridians. Our kids go to school here. We shop here. We build relationships here, and we honor our commitments. To all of our customers, thanks for trusting us to protect your family, pets, and home.
For the elimination of termites, any other pests, and a greener lawn too, call Paul's. We'll get them all.
Honey, I just got a text from Dave. He wants us to come over for a barbecue. What's our excuse for not going?
Oh, no need for an excuse anymore because Dave got a new girl from Hearth and Patio.
Oh, thank goodness. Dave, we will be happy to join y'all this weekend, and congrats on the new grill from Hearth and Patio. My wife said she would bring potato salad.
Hearth and Patio invites you to elevate your grilling game this year with one of their amazing grills from Fire Magic, Royal Master, or Blaze Grills. Call them today, 850-727-4282. That's 850-727-4282, or visit them online at hearthpatiotallahassee.com. Hearth and Patio, making barbecues great in the Sunshine State.
Honey, Dave said no raisins in the potato salad this time.
Call them today, 850-727-4282. That's 850-727-4282, or visit them online at hearthpatiotallahassee.com.
The kids are back in school, and that means more homework, more projects, more research, and more screen time for the kids. These days, you can't get much done without using a phone, tablet, or computer, so you'll need all your devices working properly. Macklemore Systems is here to help. Not only can you get repairs, upgrades, and replacements, but you can also get expert advice, guidance, and consultations on how to maximize the use of your Apple gear. The Trapper Keepers are gone, and in this digital world, Macklemore Systems are your digital experts. Online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Welcome back to the Jeff Cameron Show, sponsored by Legendary Home Loans, a mortgage experience designed around speed, simplicity, and customer service. Before you buy your next home, contact our friend Shannon Young with Legendary Home Loans. Visit FSUHomeLoans.com. FSU Home.
This will make you feel better, Tom. I looked at other power ratings during the break to see, and again, SP Plus is not that. But if you go to, say, CBS Sports, Florida State's the number 3 power-rated team in the country behind only Georgia and Michigan. Mm-hmm. And their ranking next to it says, which is something we already know, this is as good as the Seminoles have been since their 2013 title season. They're 6-0 for the first time since 2015, have outscored opponents 80-20 in the last 2 games, 12 straight wins now for a team in which Florida State has scored 30 points or more. Yeah, by the way, that is sort of the ho-hum nature of all this year is, and during this winning streak, this is how good and how much more the floor has been raised. Like, Florida State accidentally scores 30 points even on bad days.
Yeah, you know what? And maybe that's something that's worth diving into a little bit, because this game could serve as a launching point for a different discussion around Florida State. Because if you win this in lopsided fashion, and it doesn't have to be a crazy blowout, but let's say it's 31-10. You know, it's a 31-10 win over Duke. You're in control the whole game. It feels like a 50-point blowout because you knew that Duke was not going to get into the 20s or the upper 20s in terms of score the way that, you know, with a backup quarterback. And that's a ranked win. And you pair that together, or I guess you couple that or triple that together with the other 2 home games, maybe attack on a blowout next week in Snuggy Hill against Wake Forest, and then you take care of business at Pitt. You could have a 5-game run when the playoff committee is talking about what Florida State is, and you see a lopsided score to the tune of 180-50 or something along those lines.
Right.
Then you can see how Florida State will be talked about differently than we've seen so far, which is a lot of yeah, comma, but, ... And if you say, well, Florida State won on a neutral field over LSU, they went on the road, they beat Clemson, one of the best defenses in the country, and they handled business there in a true road environment in Death Valley, and then they've gone on to blow out everybody they've played since. You could see where Florida State, maybe in the College Football Playoff Committee's eyes, might be ranked higher than just barely getting in at 4th and undefeated, or 3rd. Maybe they could be perceived as something stronger, but it would all hinge on taking care of business this weekend, of course.
Last year, they went on the run and dominated in those games, save for the Florida game. And, you know, kind of thought that Florida State was well on their way to getting that 10th win and having the kind of season to turn the program around. And now you're sustaining that improvement and looking to build upon it like you're talking about. And this is a stretch of games that gives you a great opportunity to do that. Not only are you extending a win streak, which is currently 3rd best in all of the country, 12 straight wins. It's just behind Washington and just behind, obviously, Georgia. And so that's impressive. I mean, winning 12 straight college football games, the vast majority of them Power 5 games, I might add, is a really big deal. It certainly tells people that the program is back to having strong footing at the very least. Now they want to ask a different set of questions. Is Florida State elite? Well, elite teams, to your point, Tom, beat teams that they're favored by double digits against routinely. That's what they do. They don't squeak out wins in those games. They dominate those teams. They were big favorites last week against Syracuse. They rightfully blew Syracuse out. We saw the number at the beginning of the week. It was 17.5, and we thought, boy, that seems a bit short. You know, I thought that Florida State would be favored by more than that. I know you made the argument that there might be a path to why that was, and that's a fair argument that you made. I just obviously thought a lot less of Syracuse than a lot of people did, and thankfully it worked out. I think Florida State will cover this number 2, Tom, and again, that number being as high as it is speaks to the fact that Vegas doesn't think that Riley Leonard's going to play. At 15.5, if he was going to play, I think this would be less than 2 touchdowns. I think it'd be around 13.5. The fact that, so I'd say he's worth 2 to 3 points on this number. So for Florida State, if you go out and do it again, they say good teams win, great teams cover, and great teams cover big. That's another, it's just a marker. It's a way of looking how dominant are you. You're going to have stretches where you play teams that you overmatch. You're going to have stretches of games where you play teams that are lesser than. What you do in those games helps shape opinion across the country. Do you throttle people? For years, we would just assume when Clemson was really, really good, and we'd see those matchups each week. We'd be like, oh, Clemson's got, NC State this weekend, or maybe that's a bad example because for whatever reason, NC State always gave them trouble. But there would always be a game where you just be like, well, that's a no contest. It's going to be an ugly game. Alabama did this to the entirety of the SEC for years, where you'd be like, oh, man, Mississippi State may lose by 60. I mean, this is going to be a toughie. They're not doing that as much anymore. Speaks to the incremental return to the middle ground for Alabama. They're no longer this juggernaut. I mean, Arkansas last week has the ball down one possession. So this is kind of what we see now out from Alabama. They're no longer this dominant program. They're good, really good, capable of really beating anybody in the country on any given day. We know that about them. They're also capable of losing at home to Texas substantially, barely beating South Florida, who has since been blown out by the likes of FIU and UAB. So that has happened as well. So what you do in these matchups helps kind of shape opinion about what the program is. So Florida State last year in that winning streak pretty much dominated the teams they faced. Well, people later on, in an effort to denounce that, said, well, those teams were overmatched and injured. Well, they got treated as if they were overmatched and injured. Yep. They got their ass beat, as they should have. Florida State didn't go out there and barely beat those teams. They dominated those teams, again, save for Florida. Now you look at it. So Syracuse was overmatched. They've also had some injuries. Looked like a team that was overmatched and had some injuries. Took an ass kicking. Mm-hmm. Duke has got a major injury to the best player on their team, who's playing the most important position on the road at night against the top 5 team whose defense has been dominating against the run. Duke wants to run the ball. The path to the blowout that you're projecting is all there. I agree with you. Yeah. I have to look on the other side of the ball to find a way to make this game competitive, and that's where Duke's defense could frustrate Florida State's offense and hang around a little while. I get what could happen here, but a really good sign would be if Florida State does pull away, and we walk out of that stadium Saturday night and Florida State's won the game, 38-10, something like that. And all of a sudden you're going, okay, again, a sign of a team that has really good players, whose floor is raised immensely talent-wise and coaching-wise, who takes care of business in games they should take care of business in.
Yeah, agreed. That's the path to making a lot of these arguments and doing so through fact. And, Florida State's defense, you said this year before the season started that the catalyst from being an ACC championship contender to being a college football playoff contender would be an improvement on the defensive side of the ball.
Without question.
Now, this may be some low-hanging fruit this week compared to what Duke normally is. But I'm here to tell you that even with Riley Leonard, I know he's a nice player and a good runner. He's not the greatest thrower in the world. So they were still going to have to run. It's the quarterback run that would have scared the hell out of us. And they might still have some quarterback run stuff this weekend. So I don't know in the grand scheme of things that would be totally different. They didn't move the ball against Notre Dame. So I think Florida State's defense, from what we've seen so far, has paved the way and kind of held up their end of the bargain. Wouldn't you agree with what they've done to Jaden Daniels in week 1? In retrospect, just that performance looks more and more impressive. That they were able to make the game-changing play when they were on the ropes against Clemson. And they're the reason we were in overtime, because they generated the turnover and they outright scored the points that put us in position to go to overtime in that game. And then after the bye week, they've largely been very, very good. And I think they're going to continue to be very, very good in this situation. The odd part is, while the defense is held up to the expectations that you were hoping for to get to a playoff, it's the offensive inconsistencies that are holding us back from really pushing our chips all in the way we did in say, 2013, when we knew, oh, this team just doesn't have a flaw. Now, if the offense comes to life and puts a number on Duke this weekend, and there isn't a struggle, you could take the other side of it. Let's say there's not a struggle, and this is before Duke fails on offense. You come out the gate running, and you scored 24 points in, say, the first 2 quarters of the game, and it's 24-3 at the break. At that point, are you willing to start to talk about this team a little bit more with more bravado than we have to this point?
Yes, and to the point that it is there's a level of angst, and the point of consternation is around the offense. Florida State is really good on the one hand offensively. If you need to know, the Noles are 11th in points per drive. They're 11th in points per drive, and they've scored 31 points or more in every game. And that's impressive. Florida State, by the way, the aforementioned SP plus numbers is 15th in the country on offense and currently 16th on defense, and remarkably first on special teams. So these are all important numbers. But as I give you those numbers, I should also point out, which I think is weird, Trey Benson in the run game, Lawrence Taylor Philly, these two gentlemen alone are averaging over 7 yards per carry. And yet, Florida State ranks 111th in rushing success rate, 106th in opportunity rate. That's the percentage of carries gaining at least 4 yards. Yes. So we have a boom or bust run game. We do absolutely nothing for long stretches at a time running the ball. Failure, 28-yard run. Failure. This goes back all the way to that Southern Miss game when I brought up the 50-plus plays that were success rate failures. Okay, so they were raging failures, 3 yards or less on the play. 50 times in one game against the team that you scored 66 points against. By the way, Southern Miss just gave up 55 last night. They're awful. We thought they were going to go on to be good. They're not any good at all. That explains why we're playing backyard football against them. Now, that is the weirdest dichotomy of success and failure I have ever seen. Now, I haven't done this as long as some others in terms of the analytics, but the fact that you could be a top 11 offense in the country and a top 15 defense in the country, top 16 defense in the country, and have all these wonderful numbers, and yet on both sides of the ball have two glaring weaknesses, and it's really weird to see it, especially for Florida State on offense, where you have two backs that are averaging combined over 7 yards a carry, and yet 111th in success rate. It's crazy to watch that.
Agreed. It's if you're going to run with the suspicion that the offense has gotten better, it's that they've come out of the bye week knowing what they can't do a little bit more and sticking to what they can do. And these things can evolve. So if you're going to argue the optimist side, you'd say, isn't it scary that Florida State has never scored under 31 points this season, that their success rate is trash? It's trash. And yet they could only be rounding into form in a running game where they know that they can get 2 to 3 yards a carry with this one style of running that they didn't think in the preseason they were going to use. And that's all you need at that point, is to be in 2nd and 7. Or if you're in 2nd and 5 after a screen, that you get into 3rd and 2, because that's your ass. You know, like that, they're piecing it together. They're finishing the puzzle from maybe the inside going out instead of building the outside and finding the corner pieces and doing the border and then going from outside to in. It feels like it's a backwards evolution to the offense this year. But it also looks like just after the bye week that they've figured some things out as to, all right, this is what we're going to have to be, and that's okay for now. Maybe it changes as the offensive line gets healthier too, but every week it's somebody different that's in and somebody different that's out.
Well, one further point on this to paint a clearer picture, which has been a fun segment to do here about these numbers. In short, Florida State in the run game is reliant on big plays. They have to have big runs. So see Trey Benson breaking one for 80. See the Toafili run last week. See, this is what they do, right? They're capable of that. And for their numbers to work out okay and to be ranked high, they have to have those plays. But big plays are considered to be, at least in the world of analytics, unsustainable, unpredictable. You don't know in a given game how many big plays you're going to be able to generate from week to week. Whereas if you have a consistency in the run game or a consistency in the pass game, that carries over from week to week, and that's more of who you are. It's a better snapshot of who you are. We're working towards that consistency, to your point. That's what they're working towards. The problem is, and this has been the problem all year, they lose first down too often. And because they lose first down too often, they're behind the chains too often. They become that much more predictable behind the chains. Everybody does. So when you're operating from 2nd and 8, 9, or 10, as opposed to 2nd and 6, where you can run anything in your playbook, or 2nd and 5, where you can run anything in your playbook, you're going to see drastically different results. And so Florida State, if you're looking to watch this thing progress against a good defense, has got to find a way to win first down more consistently. Duke is the kind of team, there's a couple of others on our schedule moving forward, that are capable of pushing Florida State behind the chains more frequently than we would like. And so that's why you watch these kinds of games keenly. I don't think Duke's offense is good enough to do enough to steal a win here. But Florida State's offense could be made to look bad if they consistently lose first down. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Totally. That's the game this weekend is what's your first down plan? And look, I'm not going to pretend to be in those meetings. It's just, I can't wait to see it. It could be a lot of different things. Theorizing, it could be perimeter passes to the receivers and you let your guys block for you. It could be featuring Jaheim Bell because Notre Dame proved that whether it's a safety or a linebacker, nobody can cover on Duke a good tight end in a one-on-one situation. Could it be that you found some semblance of a run game, like they did something different 2 weeks ago than they did last week in terms of the types of runs that they brought to the table? Is it just straight ahead? Are we more straight ahead in the running game than we have been? Because anything laterally, this is the weirdest part. This is the weirdest part about Duke. I'm putting it in the article tomorrow, which is you don't want to go side to side against Duke. They're too quick. What? Like when I was growing up in the 90s, that was only used for 2 defenses in the country.
Yeah.
One of them was ours and the other was Miami's. You don't want to go side to side against this defense. They're too quick. That's Duke. If you're trying to run long developing runs, you're pulling, guards.
They're also aggressive when they get downhill and tackle.
And they have a really good plan for how to create, contain windows, like all kinds of stuff that they do up front. It's fun to watch. But again, I don't know that their secondary is ready for this particular challenge. If you've got a good plan, and then obviously if Jordan can deliver the ball accurately down the field.
Win first down in the pass game, Tom. That's the plan. We've worked it out today, buddy. Let's come back and wrap it up with the shortest probables of the year. Well, there's only 2. There's not many teams left, guys. Chef Cameron, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.